In today's news, Cabinet to permit the reopening of schools later this week.
BVI Government breaks ground for new Market Square and tropical wave to affect the BVI this week. All this and more when 284 News returns.
The win! Oh!
What the hell?
I'm freaking out!
Is high.
284 News.
Coming to you live and direct from the beautiful British Virgin Islands.
What's poppin', what's really good, what's happening, what's up?
Davis has won it for the Lakers!
Viewers, welcome to 284 News. It is Monday, October 12th, 2020. My name is Javon Wilson.
And I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes. Another beautiful week right here in the British Virgin Islands. Now, Javon, we have so much to get into.
Absolutely. Beginning with great news for our students, our parents, as well as our teachers. Viewers, you can all recall just last week, the Premier sitting with us in an exclusive interview right here on 284 Media and saying to us that by the end of this week, Cabinet should be approving the reopening of all public schools. Now, Kyla, we do know that of course, is still subject to Cabinet's official approval. They must put the stamp on it, and of course, in line with the protocols, the health protocols. But what we see is some hope as it relates to the public schools. We know we've been really concerned about the reopening of public schools. I'm really happy to see that we're making some headways. At least it's in the pipeline, and we know what to expect.
Most definitely.
We also see residents in the USVI turning out in their numbers just recently, Kyla, yesterday to protest against the rising levels of violence in the USVI. Just last week, we saw a shooting that resulted in 6 persons being shot and 1 person, of course, was shot dead. So persons in the community on the theme Reclaiming Our Village is now calling for peace and really trying to spread the message of love in response to the incessant gun violence that has been plaguing the U.S. Virgin Islands. And Kyla, that happened last week, but that is not the only cases. We've seen quite an increase as it relates to crime in the USVI. And, you know, it's always great to highlight what's happening across the waters from us, simply because, you know, we've seen a slight increase in crime as well, and this is what we want not to happen in the BVI, and hence why we're working so feverishly to curb the issues.
Most definitely, Javon. Earlier this year, and I think we're seeing it throughout this year, we're seeing where the USVI, although struggling with the pandemic, is also struggling and continuing to struggle with just violence in general, gun violence across St. Thomas and St. Croix.
Right.
And we're definitely praying for persons over there. One person who died, it even affected the people over here in the BVI, how close-knit we are. A young girl, 21 years old, and it's really serious.
And recently a 14-year-old as well, losing his life in a gun battle as well. So very dangerous circumstances for our neighbors in USVI. But like you said, we continue to send our thoughts and prayers to them.
Most definitely. Now, Javon, the Market Square right across the road from us, we've seen some work being done, and officially today was the groundbreaking for that project. So that's very amazing and exciting stuff. Here we see where Honorable Mark Vanterpool, our Premier of the Virgin Islands, Honorable Andrew Foy, and Honorable Kai Reimer, the representative for the 5th electoral district, basically posing for a picture as they start with this groundbreaking. This start is awesome, and I do think that this new market will have a lot of opportunities for our fishermen or fisher folks or farmers in general. And I think many speakers that spoke today really spoke to the opportunities that this new market square will bring. A fact that's been mentioned is that for many years, Honorable Mark Vanterpool have been speaking about this market square, and he's been very adamant about it. And now we see where under the Foy-led government, this is something that is being put into fruition. So we're definitely happy for that.
Absolutely. One of the things I loved, one of the lighter moments today, I would definitely say, was Honorable Sheep Smith mentioning that there is a new action man in town. So
Yes.
we do see that Honorable Mark Vanterpool's tagline is up for grabs. But yes, as it relates to Honorable Kai Reimer, a man of few words, but certainly somebody that
He's been
gets
doing
the
the
job
work.
done.
Yep.
So we're looking forward for that. I think quite a historic day. As you listen to the reflections, like Honorable Shari De Castro, speaking to the fact that her ancestors were at that very market square, to see the developments and so on in this day and age is quite remarkable. And I think in 9 months' time, we'll be in a greater place.
Most definitely, and as you speak to the sentiments of Honorable De Castro, and I think that's for many persons, and Honorable Premier was basically saying that we have to evolve with the times, and I'm definitely loving the fact that our fisher folks and our farmers will have a new and awesome place to sell their goods, because this is a part of Tortola and BVI culture in general, so I'm definitely loving that fact.
And what I love even more than that, Kyla, is the fact that it really ties into the overall objective, which is to produce a healthier population. With COVID-19 and this pandemic came the constraints of importing food, and we do know that we import a majority of the food that we eat. So this is food security for the BVI, but also speaking to overall reforming our health, and I'm so happy to see that.
Most definitely.
All right, viewers, we're going to head straight into our newscast for today, beginning with the fact that the Premier of the Virgin Islands, our territory leader, of course, Honorable Andrew A. Foy, is now confident that before the end of this week, Cabinet will confirm the reopening of all public schools, of course, guided by the protocols laid out by the health authorities. Now, this was revealed again in our exclusive interview. We had the privilege of sitting down with him right here last Friday. So if you missed it, listen in.
100%. The Minister of Education this week and up to yesterday night had a meeting with the Financial Secretary. We're making sure that we get all the necessary funds put together to make sure the schools, those schools that are still need certain attention, receive those attention in terms of making sure that the hand basins for them to wash their hands, also to ensure that there are other measures and resources put in place to deal with the COVID-19 situation in the schools. So we're working feverishly on that, and the schools cabinet will pass next week that the schools should be opening. I don't want to steal their thunder, but to alleviate some of the fears, the answer is yes, we're working feverishly towards it. And that announcement, officially when it will be and how it will be, cabinet should be making that next week. So I don't want to preempt what all that cabinet would pass, but that is in the pipeline.
So, Kyla, that was Honorable Premier speaking to the fact that the Financial Secretary himself, as well as the Minister of Education, they're all in conversation to ensure that they secure the necessary finances. Right. Because one of the challenges with the the public schools, is the fact that as it relates to spacing, that is certainly a big challenge as opposed to private schools, which may have less students and more,
we've been speaking about that.
And more appropriate spacing. So he's also making sure that the relevant protocols are in place. For example, washing of your hand, sinks in place, sanitizing, all the relevant protocols to ensure that when our kids return to school, they are in a safe environment. And I think that's what we all want. Now, a lot of things to go over as it relates to this story. I know for sure that we've been pushing feverishly to reopen all schools, especially for the government to look into public schooling. We've heard parents, and I think if not 100%, I would think a majority of parents have been really pushing for children to be reintegrated into the physical school system. The reality is, outside of school serving as an academic its academic purpose, when you examine the structure, it also serves as a daycare, because a lot of parents have to go about their daily lives, whether it's their jobs, their businesses. So generally, they do not need to worry about their kids during the day. But with this pandemic came a really challenging shift, because essentially what happened is persons had to choose between having to go to work or having to stay home and supervise these kids while they're on homeschool. So it came with a lot of strain. Additionally, in speaking to a child psychologist recently, Kyla, I was told that they personally, at their practice, would have seen a 50% increase in the number of children taking therapy classes at that institution. And it really speaks to the challenges that our children are facing. You know, we often think about our mental health as adults, but we don't take time to zero in on the challenges and the struggles that kids go through, and on top of that, may not even be able to verbalize simply because they're children. They're not even sure what's happening with this whole online paradigm. So that's something we have to consider ourselves. And I'm sure this is one of the things the leaders of this territory are considering in their decision to reopen. But while we're glad for the most part, we also cannot deny that some persons too are struggling as it relates to whether they're underemployed, whether they're unemployed. But what we find over the last few months is persons, as it relates to their finances, struggling. So now the new concern is school supplies. How do we, how can we afford to pay for uniforms and all of that? But like everything else, Kyla, we always say everything in God's time.
Everything in time, Javon, but I think many persons, that last point that you brought up, persons were juggling the fact, do I pay for proper internet and a laptop to make sure that at home my child has the proper resources to go about virtual learning? And then some of those parents forfeited basically buying uniforms. So now it's like, okay, where do I get this money from in the midst of a pandemic to pay for this uniform? How long will school even be open for? So I think a lot of things are up in the air right now, but we do see where the government is trying their best and trying to listen to persons and the community's call, and this is where we see schools reopening.
Kyla, I think the main point here is, we're all living in this pandemic, and this is affecting persons all across the globe. But I think we have to remember our moral obligation to educate our children, and we have to acknowledge that the shift to online schooling has been a challenge for so many students, especially those that are vulnerable, persons who cannot afford to get to a laptop, appropriate internet service, even constant blackouts, current shortages have resulted in classes having to shut down. And the reality is that the private schools, because they have a different structure, their kids are seemingly moving ahead. So we look at it and think it's a temporary problem. But 10, 20 years from now, our kids could be, when you reflect on this, you could see how maybe our kids would have been disadvantaged, some of our students, by remaining in this online system. So I'm happy to see that for their mental health, for academic reasons, and for who we are as human beings, social beings, that we're able to get our kids back to school.
Most definitely. I can't agree with you more. Now, as we move on, Javon, this week, the BVI might be impacted by a tropical wave. Now, according to the Department of Disaster Management, there is a potential for an active tropical wave or tropical disturbance to move across the area starting late Monday, which is actually this evening. In this press release, it said this would likely result in showers and thunderstorms along with strong gusty winds Monday night through Tuesday for the Leeward Islands, excluding Anguilla. It went on to say Anguilla and the British Virgin Islands could see this inclement weather Tuesday through Wednesday. This is coming out of the Department of Disaster Management, which they stated yesterday, October 11th, 2020. It is said otherwise most dry weather will prevail with at most a moderate chance of showers. Possible rainfall total for the forecast period is 20 to 40 millimeters or 0.80 to 1.60 inches. Now, in this press release, they said, and I quote, meanwhile, outside of days with showers, very warm conditions will continue. So we see where a little weather will be passing the BVI. Some persons might look at it as showers of blessings. So let's, most definitely. But viewers, also coming up after this commercial break, we have so much more. Dr. Robert Mathavious is actually being honored by the Queen for his service to the BVI, and also American Airlines is now resuming some of their flights to the Caribbean. So definitely lots to get into after this quick commercial break.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media@cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now, like Kyla mentioned before the break, Dr. Robert Mathavious is the territory's newest recipient of the Order of the British Empire, OBE, in the Queen's 2020 birthday honors for his contribution to financial services. Now, Kyla, as we all know, Dr. Mathavious has served the British Virgin Islands for nearly 40 years across the finance as well as the volunteer sectors. He is widely known as the chief architect behind the BVI's financial services sector, a sector which now contributes more than 60% of the territory's GDP. He was a key advocate for the establishment of the Financial Services Commission, which he served as the managing director of it since its inception, really, and also held multiple positions in the public service over the past 40 years. Now, Dr. Mathavious has also made invaluable contributions in the voluntary sector too, serving more than 20 philanthropic groups, including supporting the elderly and establishing the Youth Boys Brigade. Now, following the 2017 hurricanes, Dr. Mathavious showed leadership in bringing together key players to plan the recovery and maintain critical industries and resources. He also helped to generate much-needed revenue for the territory and played a key role in the establishment of the Recovery and Development Agency. Now, throughout his work, Dr. Mathavious has shown a true commitment to the territory's advancement and worked collaboratively in partnership with the community. Throughout his leadership of the Financial Services Commission, he has championed BVI as a stable, credible, and trustworthy financial center in line with the international standards as well as ethics. Similarly, his values of transparency and accountability were forefront in his work to establish the Recovery and Development Agency. Now, His Excellency the Governor, Augustus J.U. Jasper, said he is delighted by the news of Dr. Mathavious' honor. He said, and I quote, "I congratulate Dr. Mathavious and thank him for all he has done to shape and advance the territory over the past 4 decades. His achievements are truly exemplary and will continue to bring positive benefits to the BVI for generations to come. It has been a privilege and honor to know him, and I know the whole community will agree that he's extremely deserving of this recognition for his service." End of quote. Dr. Mathavious said, and I quote, "Being recognized for service to my country leaves me humbled and thankful. I am in debt to the government of the BVI as well as the UK, who financed my education and better equipped me to serve my community. Building BVI Financial Services was not the work of one man, but of a team, and I will share this honor with the dedicated staff of the Ministry of Finance as well as the Financial Services Commission." End of quote. Now, viewers, Her Majesty and the Queen's birthday honors are normally awarded to individuals in recognition of their outstanding achievements and long-term services to their local community. Kyla, what a prestigious award for a deserving, outstanding man who has really served the country, this territory, and the community in such a great way. I mean, we continue to see him do so well and contribute in so many ways to the community. And for this to be manifested while he's still here, while he's still alive, while he's still kicking, is just a joy to see. And, you know, I think generally when we try to put into words the contributions of persons like Dr. Mathavious, who have served in such a stalwart way, it's really hard to do, but we do want to thank him for his incredible work and the molding role he played, not just in the financial services sector, but also by default, the entire BVI community.
Javon, you couldn't say it any better with the fact that just putting it into words, persons like Dr. Mathavious and many other persons in the community who have served in such an enormous way, how do you really sum that up in words, but just by his quote and what he said is he said that it was a team, and I think he is so humble as a man. Anyone that knows Dr. Mathavious knows that he is very humble, and I think as the BVI, I don't think we understand basically the basis behind saying that he was the architect of this industry that serve us, that gives us 60% of
It's a big deal.
This is a big deal, okay? So we definitely have so much gratitude, I think, as the BVI to this man and just to the entire financial services industry in general, but also to what many persons might not understand. He did not leave with what he knows. He is definitely someone who have molded many professionals to now carry on this mantle here in the financial services industry within the BVI. And I think that's what makes it just absolutely
amazing. And I think that's how his legacy lives on as well. Like you said, a lot of his knowledge was imparted into persons in the community. So we just want to say once again, congratulations, Dr. Mathavious. We value you and we appreciate everything you've done for the territory.
Now, Javon, as we move on, we see where American Airlines, now the Caribbean's primary air carrier, began to slowly, this was back in June, they began to slowly resume flights to the Caribbean destinations that had suspended travel in March due to the coronavirus pandemic. We saw where air travel definitely slowed down due to the pandemic. And, as borders begin to open and travel begins to increase, especially now in these pre-holiday months of October and November, these are definitely critical months for airlines in general, as it begins to ramp up travel to the Caribbean region. And the carrier recently announced that it will soon be piloting a pre-flight coronavirus testing program that will actually begin in Jamaica, where it currently flies twice daily to Montego Bay and 3 flights to the capital, Kingston, followed by pre-flight testing also in the Bahamas. Now, in a quote, they said, and I quote, "The testing that we will offer will be optional for the convenience of our customers. Jamaican residents that volunteer for our pilot program and get a negative test result will not have to quarantine upon arrival." This was said by the spokeswoman of American Airlines. Now, American Airlines has also taken a number of steps to lure back travelers, including allowing passengers to fly standby without an extra fee and taking an earlier flight if empty seats are available. American is also offering frequent flyer opportunities to re-engage customers. Now, Javon, really and truly, we see where airlines are back in the air and providing for the region of the Caribbean, which is really good as we see many islands reopening their borders, especially for tourism. Also, in a quote, they said, "As we continue with the steady resumption of our operations throughout the Caribbean and Latin America, our team throughout the region have been focused on providing our customers with a safe and seamless travel experience." This was said by American's Managing Director of Operations for the Caribbean and Latin American countries. He further said, through our efforts that include our clean commitment and soon pre-flight COVID-19 testing in some markets, we hope to restore confidence in the safety of travel. Now, here, just a few of the flights of the new American Caribbean leg planned for October through November. In Barbados, the flights to Barbados began on October 8th, so that was just last week, for the first time since May 2020. The Bahamas, American Airlines just reopened flights from Miami. Each of those flights are running 5 times each week. So we see that coming out of the Bahamas, and also in Belize as of October 1st, nonstop flights are available to Belize from Miami. Bermuda, Cuba, flights to Havana, Cuba will resume on November 4th. And also we see coming out of the U.S. Virgin Islands, Javon, right across the waters, we see beginning in November, American will serve St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands with 2 daily flights from Charlotte, Mali, daily flights from Pennsylvania, and Saturday service from both Chicago and Dallas. So this is also great news.
Yes. I'm excited
Right across.
listening to this.
I definitely am as well. But with borders reopening, I think it's very important as the BVI considers reopening. We see where American is definitely one of those carriers that basically travels and brings most of travelers to the U.S. Virgin Islands as well as the British Virgin Islands through the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Absolutely, but definitely not something that we can look forward to in the short run, because we do know in the first phase of our reopening, the Premier and by default the government of the Virgin Islands has said that flights will only come for now through the Beef Island Airport. Nevertheless, something to keep into consideration, but very encouraging news for the region, Kyla, because we do know around this time, October, November, it's open season for tourism. And I think the pre-testing with American Airlines will truly be a game changer when you examine the protocols that the airlines are adjusting. Some of them have said, this is too big of a task for us. We do not want to take on the additional responsibility, the financial cost attached to it. But I definitely think this is a step in the right direction, because one of the things we have to acknowledge that came with, as a part of this pandemic, with the tourism industry essentially shutting down, is persons were in a panic to travel. Even now, persons are not necessarily considering leisure travel. Some persons are, but we can't speak for the majority. Business travel is essential in a lot of cases, so you see persons being forced to do what they need to do. But we have to get to a point where we're building back customer confidence in travel itself before we could even get them on a plane.
And I think this is definitely a start, Javon.
Right, absolutely. So we're happy to see this coming out of American Airlines. Viewers, we have one more story ahead. That's all the time we have, but we're going to go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're talking about the Royal Navy ships that uncover quite a bit of cocaine in the Caribbean region. Stick with us.
The win. Oh!
What are the
I'm freaking out.
is time?
284 News.
Coming to you live and direct from the beautiful British Virgin Islands.
What's poppin'? What's really good? What's happening? What's happening? What's up?
Davis has won it for the Lakers.
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now on to our final story. Now, a Royal Navy task group has prevented drugs worth more than $160 million from potentially reaching the UK on 2 daring operations in the Caribbean. Now, viewers, this is particularly interesting since the HMS Medway, a boat from this very UK fleet, is currently providing border security in the British Virgin Islands as directed by the governor and the government of the Virgin Islands. Now, collectively, the ships were able to seize, get this, 1.7 tons of cocaine and 28 kilograms of amphetamines in the Caribbean Sea. Not only that, the bus was the second in 2 days after seizing just about 264 kg of cocaine in separate operations in the region just 48 hours before. Now, Minister for the Armed Forces, Mr. James Hippie, said the armed forces are committed to tackling organized crime both at home and overseas, and with our allies around the world to help protect our people and their interests. The Royal Navy has once again demonstrated its professionalism and tactical operation capacity in the international effort to stop illegal drug smuggling. Now, Kyla, interesting story, because we do know in the United Kingdom's responsibility to the region, specifically to their British overseas territories, it's getting us prepared for hurricane, and in the event of natural disasters, stepping in to make sure that we're okay. But we do see them now serving in this capacity in a war against crime. I know there's been lots of conversation recently as to whether the UK Navy ships should be here and whether our borders are secure enough. But of course, this conversation has to continue another day. We're out of time.
Definitely. So that's it for our news roundup. Be sure to follow us for daily news updates at 284media.com. You can like us on Facebook at 284media and 284BVI on Instagram as well as Twitter. I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes.
And my name is Javon Wilson. Sorry, saying goodbye. See you tomorrow.
Bye.